It wasn't pretty, but Newcastle United's victory at West Ham on Monday night has kept their Premier League season alive ahead of the Wembley Cup final next week. In this video, I'll look at how the team is shaping up after what was a crucial win at the London Stadium. Let's get into it. Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel, welcome back to another video. Before we get going, please, as usual, like, share and subscribe to the videos, to the channel. Really appreciating your support. Trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, as I say every week, by the end of the season. Like the video, it really helps amplify it on the algorithm on YouTube. Get in the comment section below. Let me know what you thought of the result against West Ham, how you think Newcastle are shaping up ahead of that Carabao Cup final, and that's where we're going to start with that game last night. It wasn't a classic game, was it? It wasn't a classic performance. Newcastle were, I thought, in control. West Ham were very poor. Newcastle dominated the first half without creating too many chances and took the one that came along in the second half through Bruno Guimaraes. It was a very different setup from Eddie Howe. I think Eddie Howe, I've been very critical of his approach in terms of being a systems manager wedded to that 4-3-3 rather than a principles manager. That was not the case yesterday. I think you can absolutely tell that it was a Newcastle United performance. There was a good balance in the midfield, good play through the lines, good use of the width, and also very deep defensive line to help protect a lot of ageing players and players out of position. And it really did look like a Newcastle United performance, but it was done with what looked like a 4-1-4-1 formation. Tonali was a lot deeper, masquerading in a 4-4-2 formation when out of possession. Really felt like it was built around Harvey Barnes, and I think he might be a big crux of this video. Has he played his way into contention to start the cup final next week because of his performance? I thought he was very good. Obviously assisted Bruno's goal with that cross in the second half, but he was very lively, involved in the attacking way forward in the first half. Didn't really connect particularly well with Tino Livramento. I'll get into discussing him in a minute, but I thought the setup really suited Barnes. I think Eddie Howe had that in mind. The fact that he doesn't track back too well, he isn't a replica of Anthony Gordon, and Newcastle are going to lack a lot of the energy, both in an attacking sense but also in a defensive sense, without Gordon on that side. But he didn't force Barnes to replace Gordon in the same way. He did something different. He went into a 4-4-2 out of possession with Barnes joining Isak up front and not having to track back, and Newcastle having that structure to keep themselves compact. I think this game was won in the way it was won because West Ham were particularly poor. I think they are very, very lucky that the bottom of the Premier League this season is very weak, because they played like a team that didn't have too much threatening them, but also didn't have too much to offer. Jared Bowen and Mohamed Kudus were dangerous at times, but they are a cut above the rest of the team, which is very, very average. They look nervous, they lack confidence. They started the game really quickly, had a chance in the first minute through Thomas Souček, and they really could have taken the game to Newcastle at that stage. They were getting in behind the midfield, and there were chances being created. There was a couple of those moments, but they really just stopped gunning for Newcastle. Newcastle grew into the game, dominated the ball, and at half-time it was 0-0, but it wasn't one of those where you thought Newcastle have missed their opportunity. It's like the game was there for them if they just carried on. As it was, I thought they didn't do that. I thought West Ham reasserted themselves a little bit, and then Newcastle took the lead at a crucial moment, but that was all it took. It was one individual moment, because the quality just wasn't on the pitch throughout the game. It was really quite a poor performance from both sides, I think, in terms of an advert for the Premier League. And if Newcastle were against a better side, they could have been punished in different ways, but they weren't. They deserved the victory, and I think Bruno and Tonali linking up in a slightly different way, further apart than they have been in recent weeks, and still playing really well. It was a good sign. Murphy, a little bit better in the second half, but very poor, I thought, in the first half. That right-hand side wasn't being utilised at all, and that was kind of where my problem with the performance in the first half came, was that Tino Livramento was playing at left-back on his right foot, and you could see the cogs in his mind working in terms of getting his body in the right position to use his right foot. He was so allergic to using his left, and it really stunted Newcastle's ability to open the pitch up, because Harvey Barnes is a player who cuts in as well. When he did move on to that left-hand side, there was no overlap at all, or no credible overlap anyway, and it was really, I thought, hindering Newcastle. Now I'm quite worried about that right-hand side, and that's why I'm going to answer the Harvey Barnes question, whether he starts the cup final, because I think he doesn't, and I'll explain why. Isak was a little bit less involved, and that's where I think the credit is deserved. Previously, we've been heavily critical of Newcastle's ability to win these games when they're not playing well. They have to be at their best, they have to be intense and pushing and dominating the game in every sense, and at their absolute zenith to win a game, they have to have momentum. None of that really happened yesterday, and they still came through with the 3 points, levelling them with Manchester City in the league, up to joint fifth. Fifth is 98% likely to get you into the Champions League this season. It was really important, imperative, I would say, actually, that the Premier League season was alive going into that cup final. Not only as a builder of momentum, lots of people were saying that the team should be rested. Isak and Bruno and Tonali shouldn't play, and a less experienced team should play to rest those players, guarantee their fitness. But what you would have done is you would have drained any sense of belief from the team. A victory in this fashion, coming through it like they did, gives them belief that they can go on again and maybe do things a little bit differently and cause Liverpool some problems. I still think they will cause Liverpool problems. As I said, they're not ruling them out of a win in the Carabao Cup final. It's going to be difficult, and this is why I wouldn't start Harvey Barnes in the cup final. As I say, in this game, it works really well that Howe went into a 4-4-2 when Newcastle was defending and Barnes moved alongside Isak. That wouldn't work against Liverpool because you would leave Trent Alexander-Arnold free to cause havoc alongside Mo Salah down that right-hand side. That's where Newcastle need to stunt Liverpool if they're going to have any chance. So I would personally either bring Joe Linton over to the left or more likely Joe Willock over to that left-hand side to give a little bit of a problem for Trent Alexander-Arnold, to maybe put somebody on him to stop him from dominating from that deep position. I think Joe Linton moving out of midfield would be a risk, even though I've been critical of him in recent weeks in terms of his in possession play. I think in this game, when Newcastle are going to be likely to be counter-attacking, his physical presence, his ability to just get the ball and give it and go and put himself about alongside Tonali and Bruno and give Newcastle that foothold, that's the right midfield for this game. So I would likely start Willock on that left-hand side in a 4-3-3. I don't think the specific system and tactics that worked against West Ham will work, even though Harvey Barnes, I thought, was fantastic yesterday, really did his job very well, was heavily involved going forward, and obviously that great assist will be a huge confidence boost after what's been a difficult few months for him at Newcastle. Is obviously the tide has turned on the view of his career on Tyneside. He's not had too much of a look in. This was a crucial opportunity for him to stake a claim for that final. I think he's done everything he can. I just think from a tactical perspective, I wouldn't choose Barnes, because I think choosing Barnes would play into Liverpool's hands, whereas if you put Willock on that left-hand side and you have that link up with Joe Linton, it can really help Newcastle in the transitions. I think that's where Newcastle might be able to hurt Liverpool. Now it's full steam ahead to Wembley. Bruno said after the game that the team and the players have been a little bit distracted by it. I think you've been able to see that's not been a secret, been able to see that in their performances. This is the big moment. They have to win this game. That's how they're viewing it. But the good thing is, once they return to the Premier League against Brentford at the start of April, they've got something to go for. They're right in the race for the Champions League, and that was the most important thing. It didn't have to be a classic performance. I do think West Ham are very lucky that the Premier League is quite weak at the bottom of the table. Lots of people saying that Ipswich, Leicester and Southampton are the three weakest promoted sides ever seen. I don't think that's the case, because it's exactly the same as it was last year, and I think it's a result of PSR and as a result of the growing gap between the Championship and the Premier League that teams can't come up and really attack the league anymore, and those same teams that went down with a whimper last year, I'm thinking Burnley and Sheffield United, are right in the race to get promoted again alongside Leeds, who went down the year before. So there's a growing gap between the Championship and the Premier League, and they've been very lucky this season to be in the position that they are, where they're not under any real threat of relegation, despite being as poor as they have been. And that is a real problem for me with the growing gap. I've written about this as well, between the Premier League and the Championship. But in terms of Newcastle United, it was all about the result. They got over the line. They're in a good position, as good as they possibly can be, without Lewis Hall and Anthony Gordon, and I think it's been proven in this game why Lewis Hall is a bigger loss than Gordon, specifically because of the way he allows Newcastle to open up. He's defensively very strong, but he allows Newcastle to open up the pitch and get that overlap and and create more space down that left-hand side, because the left was quite ineffectual on that. Particularly in that first half. I think Livramento grew into the game. On the right, though, it was not used in that first half, and I think Murphy had a difficult first half. Again, he grew into it a little bit as the game went on. Newcastle battled to the win. That's all that matters. They're joint fifth in the league. They could go into that Wembley game with a clean bill of health, and they can be confident of giving a good showing. Obviously, I'll be back later this week to preview the cup final. I'll also be at Wembley, hopefully, to react from the game as well. Hopefully, to Newcastle's first domestic trophy win for 70 years. Let me know how you thought the West Ham game went in the comment section below. Like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.